does and I have a question, I guess, and for Justo, certainly the status of Puerto Rico is, you make it very clear and speak explicitly about how it influences what the educational system does. Jane, in South Africa, a country with a successful national liberation movement, which, as often happens since then, has really been transformed by the experience of ruling to a place where the divisions between the ANC and really probably a majority of South Africans, that division has grown. Even though there's a lot of support for the ANC, if you ask members of the trade union movement what they think of the ANC right now, by and large, they're not happy. The miners are not happy with what the ANC government has done in relation to mining regulations and how it affects the lives of the miners. And I wonder if that influences the context in which higher education, as you are engaged in it, how that impacts. And then I want to ask Sabrina about what it means to teach in a country which is very rich but so very unequal. But Jane.
That's a very rich question, and I might not have answers to it, but I'll try to address an aspect of that from within what we do in the space in the Faculty of Education and what is happening in schools right now. There is one thing they have done, and that's the affirmative action, where there is equal opportunities for every South African. One, as long as you have a qualification for a specific job, whether you are black, white, or wherever, you have an opportunity to be able to fit into work. The other bit they've also tried to do is, we had homeless South Africans that were displaced and all those sorts of things. So what every political party is trying to do now is to reach out to the poor in the shacks. Shacks are townships where these poor people live. So every politician is trying to improve an economic livelihood of the people in the shacks, because those are the people who will vote for them, especially now when everybody is trying to find space for who votes for who. Now, in the I'm not using this stereotypically, but in the minds of many South Africans, ANC was the party of freedom. So it doesn't matter who is going to be the leader, it is the party. So, and on the other hand, you can also perceive, this is a sense of perception through news and what I see. There is a strong division. We still have blacks who feel that DA is the party, of course, because of the principles they put in place, the policies they put in place, which when they look at those policies, it speaks to them. Some have found ANC to be not meeting their needs, and so there are shifts that are taking place, like you have said. So for us in the education sector and in higher education, we sort of say this is good leadership and this is bad leadership. This is the role you need to play as a citizen. Identify some of the positive and productive ways of doing things in a society that can multiply society and not divide. And so we don't teach vote for this party, vote for that party, but we give them the tools to be able to identify what is the right policy, what's the wrong policy, who is doing the right thing, who is not doing the right thing. We don't teach them about parties. We can give them the histories of parties, but we give them the tools to be able to see what is good and what is not good. So that's the space in which we play a role as higher education.
And the power of the ANC is not being used to shape what is happening in the schools.
in schools, if you look at the curriculum now, it's very integrated. Where previously I've had a friend of mine researching at the same faculty that researched that curriculums were initially reflecting only whites and coloreds and Indians, and pictures of blacks were not represented in books. In mathematics, in English, the pictures they used to see were only white people in exercise, in textbooks. But today you can see in the new textbooks there is a balance, that even if they were to demonstrate a particular scenario, white kid is represented, Indian kid is represented, the diversity is represented. So the schools also teach history of South Africa, the political history, economic history, and we talk about the apartheid system, and we see how that the impacts that had in the South African community, and we brainstorm critically about a way forward. We open that space in schools as well. We do that, and we hope that will help us to sort of come up with good citizens. We do. I would say we do that because I see both education contributes to politics and economic and all that. And what I said is the kind of minds we want to change a mindset. We want to transform a mindset, and it is that mindset we work with in schools, so that when we might not be able to have feedback from the students we graduate, but we have a view. Of course, they go for internship, they do teaching practice, but we have that strong vision that after they are trained within that particular setting, they might go out and become good citizens.
I know we're out of time because you have to get back to the conference, but Sabrina, if I could ask you briefly to respond to my question.
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges of teaching in a society like ours here in America is that you basically end up kind of having to teach through a fog of propaganda. We have an understanding of ourselves as being an innately free country, that, you know, because of the flag and the Constitution represented as a piece of paper and a thing, as opposed to a set of rights and the thing we have to, you know, there's a sense that there's nothing really that we need to do to be free. We just have to go to school and go vote and everything will be okay. And that's not true. And so I think, you know, sort of the appearance of wealth in our society, the appearance of affluence, kind of obscures, one, the deep inequality that we experience, that more and more people are coming, you know, brutally face to face with. But also, it tends to obscure how deeply oppressed people are, even from people as they are being oppressed. People not understanding that just because you can choose between the supersize and the regular at the drive-thru, or because you can go to Old Navy or the Gap, that's not what freedom is. And so there's a recognition that, you know, there needs to be more agency, that people need to be participating a lot more, paying a lot closer attention to what's going on in order to truly be free. And so I think both the challenge and also the promise of democratic education is that it allows us to, one, you know, live within our, you know, in our own school communities, beyond the idea that our democracy happens at a ballot box once every, you know, year or a couple of years, but that we are actively all the time creating the society in which we live. And so that also gives us the opportunity to model that and, develop that sense in students, so that they understand that their responsibility in a democratic society isn't just about voting for some other person to go run things, but that they are creating the society that they live in, that their vote is just creating a context in which they are doing the work of living in society, of making sure that that society is free. And so that, I think, is the big thing that we have both a challenge and an opportunity with, is, you know, taking those experiences of living in an unequal society that does have this very deep and very rich tradition of freedom, of democracy, and actually, you know, making sure that we can develop students' ability to realize that as opposed to idealize it.
Thank you so much. I